Thank you to Emily Johnson from the Loblaws, well, the organizer of the Loblaws boycott. We had on a few months ago to talk then about the boycott, and now we're talking about Loblaws and Sobeys back in the news for the less than reputable reasons of basically fixing, well, not fixing, just shenanigans when it comes to the pricing of their scales, and that we're paying too much for weighed items at the checkout. Thank you, Emily, very much for coming on to talk with us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here again.
Well, I was hoping that we'd never talk again because I was hoping that Loblaws and Sobeys would have kind of smartened up and said, okay, the market doesn't want us to do this kind of stuff, yet here we are. Uh,
Here we are.
let me get your take on what we've heard, because we're recording this kind of a few weeks after the news broke by CBC that
Mhm.
Loblaws and Sobeys were engaged in these dubious practices. I'm being very generous with that description there. What's your take on this? What is your boycott kind of viewed this as?
I mean, it's the long and short of it is it's not news to anyone who's a longtime follower of our sub, talking about shrinkflation and greedflation, showing pictures, people weighing things on scales. We did a video a couple weeks ago just showcasing a number of different posts over the past year and a half ish where people are displaying these exact instances. So it's a bit of a joke, I would say, in our community, just saying, okay, cool. So the CBC is breaking this news.
Mhm.
That's great. But how long has this been going on for?
Well, and I mean, this isn't an isolated incident. I mean, everybody should, if you should be reminiscing about the infamous bread price fixing scandal from a few years ago. That again, nobody was caught. Like nobody did time. I think a fine was paid, but that was it. But I mean, this essentially is fraud. I mean, you're conspiring to fix the price of a essential food item,
Basic necessity.
right? And in this case, now we're talking about, oh, we're now just rejigging our scale so that we can eke out it's a few cents on the gram, but that adds up to, you're paying more for your meat and other weighed products at these stores. And this seems to be a behavior. This is like these aren't like one-off, like, oh, we screwed up here, we apologize. This seems to be almost like a cultural behavior at Loblaws and Sobeys to engage in these kind of actions. And like, do you think that I'm being hyperbolic on this, or am I just being
No,
overreactive?
I think you're spot on, and I think that I would definitely agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think this has gone on for as long as it has because nobody has paid attention to it for all of this time, right?
Hmm.
How many posts do we see about shrinkflation, right? Where, oh, look, it's brand new packaging. And unless you're paying attention, you don't notice that there's 50 grams off, 100 grams off, that sort of thing, right? So I think we're shifting into this era where corporations are trying to find ways to maximize their profits any way possible. And because everyone's kind of hyper focused on the cost of everything right
Hmm.
now, it's finding these sneakier, and I don't mean it to sound hyperbolic myself, but nefarious ways to change our products to just give us the absolute bare minimum for the maximum possible price.
One of the reasons why I wanted to have you on was I remember when you first came on the podcast, you had just sat down with a vice president of Loblaws because your
The
boycott.
CEO.
The C, sorry, with who?
It was the CEO, Pear
Oh,
Bank.
okay. Um, Either way, not somebody who's not inconsequential at Loblaws, and you had to sit down with them and you were chatting with them because your boycott was getting traction. And I know that you had requested them to sign your uh, grocery store code of conduct, and they said they were looking into it and that they would endeavor to fix their practices to bring down the costs of goods in their stores. What do you think of that meet? What do you take of that meeting now that this story has come to light? What's your we're looking back on it? What do you think that meeting was really about?
I mean, I think a big part of it was for both of us to kind of better understand each other. Um, I will argue that Pear Bank definitely likes to be out there and to suggest to people that he's listening, right? And I have no reason to believe that they're not listening. Whether they're listening, for our benefit could be a different story.
Mhm.
A lot of people, especially on, our organizer team, had said this is probably just a lot of lip service, and that's kind of what it's looking like right now. Asking your questions, getting your PR response,
Right.
and going from there.
Do you, clearly, I'm might be putting words in your mouth, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to assume that your organization, that people that are supporting your boycott, have lost whatever good faith trust that Loblaws or Sobeys might have extended to you to stem the bad publicity, so to speak. Have they broken that trust with you? Do you think there's a chance of dialogue in good faith to really talk about more transparent pricing for groceries?
I mean, personally, yes, I would love nothing more than to have real conversations with real actionable goals coming out of that. I would love to sit down and just say, "Hey, here's the concerns of the community. We can pull them, talk
Hmm.
about, the major points that people want to see addressed." Transparency is huge. And we see that not just for corporations, but with government as well. People just want to see more transparency. What goes into pricing this box of mac and cheese, right? How much is going to the farmer, or not the farmer, I guess, for mac and cheese, but what goes into each kind of step along the food system? Not a
Hmm.
lot of people understand how our food system works and how pricing gets created. And I think that also causes a lot of anger and frustration.
Well, there's a couple of notes off that we're gonna touch upon. So let's put a pin in that. But there's a recent book out by Vas Bednar, who's a uh, PhD professor at McMaster. I'm stumbling over my words here, but she came out with a book that was tackling why we have this essentially like monopoly oligarchic practices in Canada. We have very little competition, and that's ultimately isn't that what this comes down to? Is
Yes.
like I hear they were talking about food pricing and how it works, and that we it's not so much a one person that sells the food. It's more like there's only one person that you can sell the food to. So those farmers that produce our meat and vegetables, there's no market for them to say, "Hey, who wants to buy my meat or my corn or whatever have you at a fair market value for them?" It's There's one person buying it, so that price is driven down for the farmer. They're not getting a fair shake for for their work. But then because it's so low, the person's able to just jack up the price and then sell it as the middleman to Loblaws, Sobeys, and Metro, which is then passed on to us. Um, like I just like to say we just need more competition in this country. Like so that's one long way of saying we're in the midst of a new liberal leadership race. There's going to be a new prime
Mhm.
minister, and I'm curious to know, have you reached out to any of the candidates to endeavor, at the federal level, we do need teeth on the Competition Bureau to go into these monopolies, these oligarchies, and really just kind of break them up to say Canadians need competition. We need to be able, our dollar has to mean something, and
Mhm.
that we need people to actually fight for our hard-earned dollar now, not just take us for granted that we're the only place to go to buy a Frito Lay's bag of potato chips. Have you considered doing that? You're leveraging your national organization to say, Mark Carney, Karina Gould, Christopher Freeland, this is what we want from you guys.
So, I mean, we've we've had lots of discussions. We've
Hmm.
always tried to maintain a kind of nonpartisan approach to what we do. We do have plans as a group to like host AMAs, and that
Hmm.
sort of thing with whoever is kind of willing to, in terms of party leaders. It's been abundantly clear to me through this whole process which parties are very supportive of what we do, and which parties are really don't want anything to do with us. And I think that that's going to become fairly apparent to our community members as well. Because we always try to steer conversations away from, hey, let's bring up this, and this about such and such
Mhm.
history. It's getting really hard to do. And I think that it's really important for people to know who is working in kind of our best interests as a country and who's, making backdoor deals with Galen Weston. Maybe it's
Well,
not like nefarious, but
I,
it's
I,
possible.
I'm not, well, just the behavior, the pattern of behavior is something that I don't, I mean, there's no evidence, but I'm not going to say that's completely out of the realm of possibility. I mean, there was I remember hearing about the bread price fixing scandal. I thought, you know, even the Roman emperors knew you don't mess with the price of bread. And these guys just have no qualms about I was like, that's easy. Like they're when
Pretty clear signal of
yeah.
oligarchic behavior, right?
And I thought that was just so, and just the fact that like our institutions don't seem to be stepping up to really say, okay, we need to do something about this, other than just ask you politely, could you please bring down the price of groceries? Because clearly like, there's a culture at these institutions that this isn't these aren't one-off events. It's a pattern. It's becoming a pattern, and I
It's
don't.
legal for a price, basically.
Well, that's just it. I just like at what point do we just say, okay, we need to actually do something about this and pass laws or just enforce laws that are on the books and say, no, you don't need to own every grocery store on the block.
There's a Loblaws store within 10 kilometers of 90% of the population. They openly brag about that on their website. It's wild because for so many people, that is the only option.
And that in itself should be an alarm to Canadian politicians that if a company has that amount of reach, I mean, and this isn't like something that you really can option out. Like if you're in need of food, especially if you're on public transit, if you're not somebody who has the time to drive across town to go shop around, that you need to have the idea that you only have one company of this size to go to. It just gives so much power to them.
And
Um,
seeing, Shoppers Drug Marts being in far more transit friendly or walk
right.
friendly areas, right? Especially for those seniors and on fixed incomes. Like it's like you said, it's very alarming.
And I guess yeah, I'm floored by this. So what are your plans to do with like a next step for the boycott in light of this? Like, is there a education campaign? Is there a next step? What are your group planning to do at the grassroots?
So over the next couple months, we are kind of doubling down on some educational campaigns on our socials, really breaking down some of these big topics like greedflation, like, why our groceries are increasing, trying to look at alternatives to our regular food system and that sort of thing. We want to make a big huzzah, obviously, for 1 year of boycotting. I understand Alt Grocery is actually looking at launching in the States as well, which will be really exciting, I think, for us too. Then we're kind of still in the process of it, but we are working at getting our own charity set up, with eventual plans to kind of try and enter into the social enterprise sector where we could possibly be looking at, cooperative food stores and that sort of thing.
Bringing back the co-op. I remember those from way back in the day.
Love co-ops. Like I
Mhm.
love them so much. Rest in peace, the mustard seed down on Main Street.
And I remember the mustard seed as well. It's an interesting premise that you want to bring back. I mean, are you do you think you might be biting off more than you can chew? I mean, you're taking on the three of the biggest oligarchies in Canada. Um, do you think you might be in over your head on this?
I was in over my head the moment this went viral, and people are saying, "Oh my God, we're gonna boycott Loblaws." So like, we may as well run with it, right?
It,
I think that it's absolutely a massive, massive fight. And I always, try to remind the team that we just have to do what we can to make our slice of the world a little bit of a nicer place to be.
that's a good perspective to have. You know, I guess there are your detractors are saying, well, Sobeys and Loblaws, like this is proof they got away with this another fixing scheme. Um, the boycotts are ineffective in terms of changing things, and I want to hear your kind of your rebuttal to that. That why do you keep going in light of all this new scandal information that we're seeing from these companies?
I think like it's a two-pronged kind of perspective for me. On one side of it, it's this is exactly the reason why we need to keep going because we keep finding out and we keep finding out. Look at how many conversations we've opened on a national stage talking about the price of essentials like groceries. And then on the other side of it is how inspiring this movement has been to our community members and all of these wonderful messages. There's some folks down in St. Catharines who just took it upon themselves to start saving meals from local businesses and other farmers and started distributing it to encampments. And now he's like actively, fighting in his town hall with his counselors to, stop the notwithstanding clause being used.
Hmm.
We start to hear a lot more stories like this. People looking at starting mutual aid groups, and it's really opening a lot of cool conversations, and it's helping people kind of understand this system that we're in is not working. We need to work together as a community to find alternatives.
Are you? It sounds like you're touching upon kind of taking this beyond just Loblaw, Sobeys, and Metro. I mean, you're talking kind of taking on a bit more of a broader, a communal approach to living. Is that where you see this going in the future?
I would hope it would. And I mean, who knows what the future holds? I think that a lot of people who are involved in the movement would really just like to see lower grocery prices. But if that's not going to work, if we're not going to depart from this, obsession with money, let's find other ways to meet our needs at a community level. Let's find ways to build that community, to build relationships, and depend on each other.
It's a good perspective to have on the current state of affairs in the world, as it
Like I
were.
can't turn on the news one more time today.
Uh, well, no, I mean, for a while now, I agree with your point that we need more. I think competition is the way to bring down pricing for a lot of things, not just in the grocery stores, but also our telecoms and things of that nature. That
Banking, airlines,
yeah,
gas.
we need more competition, not more consolidation or whatnot. And it like, do you feel like you're just hitting roadblocks? Like, because I think a lot of people just kind of view it as we, as much as we try to take on these billionaires, the oligarchs, the monopolies that just control the most essential parts of our day-to-day life, it's hard to find like, what exactly it is that we want, good food, good service, that kind of thing. Where do you find the energy to kind of just keep going with this 1 year out?
Lots of coffee, lots and lots of coffee.
That
But
works for
again,
me.
it's our community organizers. It's the people who are, involved with us and engaging in conversations, in
Hmm.
working to, educate each other. Like that's just always what inspires me to kind of keep going. That, there's some hope in this eternal optimist here that,
Hmm.
we can make a difference, and any sort of difference, no matter how small it is still a win. It's still positive. It's still where we want to kind of go. So,
Well, that I think that's yeah. I mean that's a good place to maybe leave it off. Just that bit of optimism. Yeah. I mean I hope people listen to this take heart. I think it's a bit frustrating that we haven't heard any. Uh, I do question whether or not there are possibility of fraud charges against Loblaw and Sobeys for the initial action. I think that's what frustrates most people is that these clearly trying to oversell, underdeliver
mhm.
purposely, not by accident, does seem to be fraudulent. The fact that we don't see any charges being brought to these corporations, um, it's frustrating. What does this do? What does it tell you that when we see just these criminal, any one of us could see like this is criminally wrong.
Mhm.
We don't see any like we're not seeing the attorney general pressing charges against store
I were to
managers.
do something like that, I would be in prison right now.
That's just it. Any one of us doing that on a small business saying, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to charge you more for less. We would consider that to be fraud. Like it would be to be a question of, okay, is this a fraudulent business? Yeah, are
Mhm.
you scamming somebody out of money? And if you did it, or if I did it, there'd be questions. We'd be called in front of somebody, a judge or somebody, to answer for that. But because these are people deemed too big to fail, do they just get a pass?
Right.
You know,
And who out of that agency would even, or organization, like who would be brought in to, face the penalties of that? Who was the decision maker?
well, it's not,
Um,
it may not even that, but maybe the corporation as a whole, maybe that means you have to face a severe fine, or I would argue, the company has to be broken up. You can't, Zara's Independence, Loblaws, Fortinos, all these mega companies, Sobeys, Farm Boy, Longos, etc. They
bring
have
back
to be
longos,
well,
please.
they have to be broken up. You have to sell them off within a year because clearly this is not doable. And I really don't think that's a hard yeah, I don't think that's a hard thing to put before the Canadian people or the Canadian government. Say this is a case where we can't allow you to buy up this much stuff.
Yeah, no, and I mean, honestly, like the biggest thing is every single time we see an instance of this, submit a complaint to Measurement Canada and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, send a letter or an email to your MP, and just absolutely make it so unavoidable that they're going to have to do something about it.
Well, that's just it. Like we know for a fact we're going to be facing a federal election in
Mhm.
October, uh, possibly sooner.
Absolute latest,
Who
yeah.
who knows? But you know, everybody knows that we need pricing, not just in groceries, but everything has to come down. We pay too much for essential things in our day-to-day life. We have one party who says it's a carbon tax that causes the price to go up, which I think we'll see a minimal decline in pricing, not substantive in our day-to-day paychecks.
I don't think we're going to see any decline in pricing.
Well, nothing that won't be rebuffed in the next month. Pricing won't. We will not. It won't be noticeable to us in terms of like our dollar power. Um, I you know I kind of want to bring it back to you to say like do you feel you have any kind of leverage to campaign on this and say one party, whether it's the NDP, the Liberals, or the Conservatives, or the Greens, hell, even the Bloc in Quebec, campaign to say this, we need to give at the Competition Bureau some teeth to go in and break these companies up, actual penalties for this kind of behavior that is, it's predatory and it's just fleecing Canadians, no matter where you live. Like, do you feel any pressure to kind of say like we've clearly people are behind your boycott, people are embracing this, and this is kind of you might have a time to shine. Uh, on I think one of the major issues of our current age.
Like, is that your way of asking, like, am I running?
No. I wouldn't dare suggest you run because I think you're too nice for it. Um, but I do think you have a lot of people who, if you went to somebody in a political party and said, "We expect better of you," like this is
Mhm.
up to you. You're an elected official. Like we've asked the companies to do better. They have clearly not. They are not interested in changing their ways. They're not interested in finding new ways of doing business that's more fair to Canadian consumers. So now the onus is on you. And if all you're going to do is just cut taxes, maybe that's not far enough. But but like, what's your actual plan to say, let's, break up these companies? Do like I always say, like Galen Weston being a billionaire, he sells food. I mean, that's not really a hard job if you think about it. Like we all need to
It's a
eat.
captured market, people.
Well, that's just it. Like he hasn't, like it's not like you create a new technology. Oh, that's a really innovative design. He sells food, like food to hungry people. It's not really like a revolutionary business plan.
But we only have 3% margins. Like, yeah, because people have to go there. It's such a safe line of business to be in comparatively. Like, there is
Well, that's
minimal,
it.
there is next to no risk. Like,
Well, that's
why
it.
are you talking to me about this?
And that's it. And that's just it. Like, at some point, we do have to go back to say, maybe you don't need to be a billionaire. You can be a millionaire, a multimillionaire. You are still going to live a very comfortable life. But my God, like I don't understand why a can of tomato sauce can cost, 50 cents at No Frills, but I go to Fortino's and it's $1.99. And it's the exact same can of tomato sauce. There's something going on there. And that's not a
Mhm.
competition thing. That like you own both stores. It should be 99 cents or less than 99 cents
Both
at
of
both
those things
stores. Um,
paid like pennies for to get in the first place.
well, exactly. And I understand, I'm not saying can't make a profit, but my God, like there's something that doesn't make sense here. That, why do eggs cost so much more at one store as opposed to the other store? And they're both owned by the same company. This doesn't make sense. That's not competition.
An
That's a,
illusion of choice. It's the
it is.
illusion of competition.
Like, and that's again, I kind of come back to the federal government because that's where the we've rest of the power is. When are they going to get? It's kind of step in the game, saying, okay, we really need to start rattling the cage here. We need actual competition. We need like No Frills and Fortinos to compete. You can have higher end goods at Worcester, that's fine, but you can't like I don't know. We just
Just need all of it to be broken up, and that competition bureau really, I think, is a key piece of this puzzle, right? Is actually having teeth behind that agency. I mean, our e-petition E4974 was tabled. We had over 17,000 signatures. Our response that we received was lacking, to say the least. Not really addressing anything that we've said, but just saying we've funded the Competition Bureau more. We've funded the Competition Bureau more, so they're going to have a lot more power to do things. And great, the Competition Bureau was able to get the property restrictions removed off of a Sobeys store out in, I want to say it was Alberta, Crow's Nest
okay.
Pass. So great, now there's other grocery stores, and that's absolutely a win. But what about the rest of, the country? Gestures
Right.
wildly at everything, right? So we got one win. We've got a lot more wins that we need, and quickly too.
And that's just kind of what it comes down to is that, the Competition Bureau is meant to protect us, the consumer, and to give us more, help our dollar go further. And it's really failing at that. And I find your response the federal government to be rather lacking.
Lacking.
Well, it is. I mean, just say, well, we funded it more. Well, that doesn't mean squat. It's not a funding lack. It's a fact of you need to change the regulations to say
Like if I don't do my job, I don't get a raise. I get fired.
Right.
So why is it different for this agency that was put in place to protect
Hmm.
us as consumers?
Yeah, I mean, clearly something's not working if we're just making if we're paying more for bread and cheese and eggs and milk. Um, clearly something's not going either it is the carbon tax or it's something else. And if the government says no, it's not the carbon tax,
Then what
then
is it?
you got to do something else. And that's just what I don't get is, you know, I yeah, the lack of response on the powers that be is a little telling in my opinion.
Oh, it's super telling, and it's super unfortunate. And I really worry about the times ahead, like not to get tinfoil hatty and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
there's a lot of anger out there. There's a lot of frustration. I think the whole Luigi situation with our neighbors in the South has really sparked a lot of spicy conversations.
Well, like there's something that should be said. I'm not condoning.
We can just leave that there, but
Well, no, I'm not afraid of going there. I'm trying to put my thoughts into words there because I think like the fact that there wasn't intense outcry and outrage, like, oh my gosh, this brazen murder in downtown New York in broad daylight, and the fact that people are like, this is not like, yes, it's wrong, but at the same time, people having to choose between essentials of life isn't just either. And I'm willing to have that conversation. And I mean, the fact that it comes down to this to spark that conversation is telling in itself. I don't think we'll go that far in Canada. I hope we don't. But my
right, like
God,
I hope asterisks we don't go down
well,
that path.
no, but I mean, I would hope that the billionaires in this country are taking note, saying, yeah, maybe our practices aren't in the best interest of Canadians. Maybe we can let the price fall on essentials like bread, eggs, milk, etc., meats and whatnot.
Markup and make your profit on things like chocolate and whatever.
Well, that's just
Um,
it. Like, you sell your luxury goods, the premium chocolates and the premium pasta and all that
Black
stuff.
label lines and stuff like that.
Make that and sell it to me as the premium whatever. That's fine. But my God, like if you like the fact that my question is have they just kind of ended their business model is tapped out because there is no competition. Like we can't get any more money out of these stores unless we start rigging the pricing schemes, right? Like,
Is
have they just
probably what's going on.
what's that to say? Like, we can't get any new products in, we can't get any new services in. We've got these huge footprints that we have to pay off, but we don't really have any new ways of bringing revenue in through those stores. So what do we do? Okay, well, the scales are going to be rigged in our favor. We're going to fix the price of bread in our favor. Um, And I do wonder how long until people just say enough's enough. And because they don't, you know, how much power do we have to take our money elsewhere? If, Sobeys and Loblaws are in on it.
Yep. And having these shady backdoor conversations or
Well,
back room.
well, that's just it. Like you either you have them out in the public, and we can all be part of it, and we can all find a way. Like I have no problem with Loblaws and Sobeys making money. By all means, make money,
Of
make millions
course,
of
it's
money, millions of
good.
dollars. Go for it.
Or
Just don't screw us over.
yeah, right. Like, I mean, we live in one of the richest countries of the world. Why do we have, people going hungry? Why do we have people skipping
Yeah,
meals? Why do we have people living in tents and, so on and so forth? This could open a lot of other side tangents, but well, we
it's
also
all
have someone, a
it's all
billionaire
it's
selling
all
food.
connected. It's all connected. There's nothing that's not connected to something else that we've learned on this podcast. So um, I see we're coming up on our time. It's as always, Emily. It's a pleasure to talk with you. Wish you the best of luck in the future, and yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.